bigger.
Oh, like be bigger.
Okay.
No.
So today, or tomorrow is the ACT.
Oh, the reminder.
How many of you guys have taken it already, the ACT? No one, right? Well, some people have taken the actual ACT. They do it early. No one has, right? You've done pre-ACT? Okay. So there are a few more tips that I can give you. We've talked about apostrophes. We've talked about commonly confused words. Let's talk today about a couple comma rules that I often see on the ACT. And then let's do an ACT practice where I can give you some general advice. So a couple comma rules that are important on ACT. This one I think is the most important one. A normal sentence, yeah, goes subject, verb, object, right? It's gotta have a subject and verb to be a complete sentence. That would be a complete sentence. And then you can have the object, where I'm going, like that. The rule that ACT never wants you to break is that you should not separate these parts of speech from each other with a comma. So you shouldn't have a comma right there that separates the subject and verb from their object. And you shouldn't have a comma right there that separates the subject from what it is doing. And the number one comma rule I see on the ACT most often is looking at that specifically. It does not want you to separate the subject from what it is doing. So even if it's like, I run and jump and play. Sometimes we'll see those words and we'll say, oh, that's a fanboy word. That's a coordinating conjunction. So I know that coordinating conjunctions need commas with them, right? Fanboys, if you don't remember, is for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. Those are words that stick things together, right? And some people will look at this and they'll say, I see that fanboy, I know it needs a comma. But ACT, with big, longer sentences than this, will try and trick you and put a comma right there. And what you're doing when you have a comma there is separating the subject of the sentence from the actions that they are doing, right? I run, but I also jump and play. So I don't want to separate those parts of speech from each other. Yes.
Put a comma there if there wasn't an and,
Definitely.
right?
Because then we got a list.
Doesn't
I
make
run,
it
jump.
sure.
Yeah, then we got a list. I run, jump, and play. Yeah.
Do you have like a stance on the Oxford comma?
I've never seen them test you on the Oxford comma. Sometimes though, well, I've seen it where it's like the only correct option will have the Oxford comma, but you never have to choose between two correct answers on the Oxford comma. Does that make sense? Like one with and one without that are both correct. Yeah. Okay, so that's one rule that they're testing you on. Let's keep it simple. I run and jump like that. Another rule that they like to test you on is compound sentences. That is when you have to use a comma because there's a coordinating conjunction. So I run and she laughs. I run on its own as a complete sentence because it's a subject and a verb. She laughs on its own as a complete sentence. We can stick complete sentences together with fanboy words, but this is not enough. If we don't have a comma here, we call this a run-on sentence. If there's compound sentence put together like this, two independent clauses together, you got to have a comma and the coordinating conjunction. If you only have the comma, that's a comma splice. That's incorrect. And if you only have the coordinating conjunction, it's a run-on. So it's got to have both to be strong enough to stick them together. This is what's called a compound sentence. There are also complex sentences. Complex sentences takes a complete sentence like this, I run, and sticks it with an incomplete sentence, which is called a dependent clause. It's still a clause. It still has a subject and a verb, but you make it dependent by adding certain marker words like while, or after, or if, or because. Words that when you add them to that sentence, you can feel that it's incomplete. Because I run. Because I run what, right? Like you're waiting for the end of that sentence. That's a dependent clause. While I went to the store, what happened? So anything that has those kind of words, they can be punctuated depending on what the order is. So if you have dependent clause first, and then your independent clause, your complete sentence, then you gotta have comma. Because I ran, she laughed. Why is she laughing at my running? I don't know. Dependent first, then independent, you gotta have this comma there. It's almost like a little introductory clause. Flip it, she laughed because I ran. No comma. When the independent clause comes first, followed by the dependent. Those are the two rules I see very most often. The third rule that I see sometimes is unessential information. This is when you set things aside. My mom, Lynette, is an okay cook. I don't want to lie, she's just okay. Sorry. Something's good, something's not so good. My mom, Lynette, is an okay cook. If I took out Lynette, that sentence still means the same thing. My mom is an okay cook, right? I'm just adding this little bit of extra information. It's actually renaming what came before. I can do this with other information too. My mom, an Ironman athlete. See, I'm saying nice things too. Is an okay cook.
Okay.
That's extra information. It really has nothing to do with how she's a cook, but I'm adding a little bit extra info there for you to know, right? So I'm setting it aside with these commas to say it's non-essential. And you can set this aside with commas, but you could also set it aside with dashes. The important thing, they're not going to ask you to choose between dashes and commas. The important thing is that you stay consistent. So you can't have one be a comma and one be a dash. It's got to be a dash on both sides. Same with parentheses. You can't have one be a parenthesis. It's got to be a parenthesis on both sides. But either way, you're setting aside this non-essential info.
So on the ACT, like sometimes ask you like, can this information be taken off or stuff like that?
Yes.
What do we like with that extra information? Will you put like no change or what?
You determine if the meaning of the passage needs it. So you look at the passage and you're like, if we didn't have that information, would the passage still make sense? That's less of a grammar question and more of a structure question about passage. And that leads me to my 3 bits of advice that you've probably heard before if you've done any ACT prep, but it's still useful. Number 1 is simplest is usually the best. So let's say you're taking the test and you have 2 answers that look pretty good and you can't decide. The best choice would be the shortest one. It's the simplest answer is the right answer 80% of the time on the ACT. So if you know the answer, don't go against what you know. Like if you know that thing needs a comma, then choose the one with the comma. But if you're like, I can't decide, does it need a comma or not? If without a comma, it's shorter because that one extra comma, then choose the shorter option. It's usually the right one. If you like have no idea, there's 4 options, choose the shortest one. And that includes omit. If omit would be the shortest one, right? Because you're taking out all of the words to make it shorter. That means omit is often the right answer. Okay, number 2, this kind of goes with the first one. They're looking for redundancy. So anything that repeats. The goal of the English language is to be able to speak it without like in the sort of most direct, straightforward way. That's the goal of any language. So if there's any information that repeats, you want to take that out. That means that as you're reading, you don't just skip between the underlined portions, you read the whole thing so that you can pause and think about whether that information was already given above. And then number 3, sometimes people are afraid of the no change option. But no change is a legitimate answer. It's as often correct as any of the others. So don't be afraid to choose no change, especially if no change is, again, simplest answer. Yeah. Really? I didn't know that.
And when you do that, like choose just one letter, so do policy or all.
Yes, that makes sense to me. I don't find that you guys run out of time. Maybe I'm wrong, but that you guys run out of time on the grammar portion of the test. Reading portion, yes.
Oh, no. Not reading.
Grammar portion, though, it kind of, you usually have enough time. You have enough time at least to go through and find the shortest one.
Arwen, did you say B and C or D and C?
B and
okay.
C. Interesting.
B or what?
So that'll be useful on math.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Lord
Yeah.
save me on
Okay,
that.
good. Yeah, don't leave any, you're not penalized for guessing. So don't leave any blank.
Yeah,
So,
no,
do you have any tips
So
on
instead of
being like
guessing,
reading
just
through
go.
Honestly, this is the reason I don't really go over it, is because the reading one, it's like, the tip is to read more. You know, it's like, it's all about reading comprehension. There's a couple things that people say. People do say, decide which one works for you. Does it work better to read the questions, or does it work better to read the passage first? I find it, I don't know about you, much easier to read the passage first. But that's just me. I say read the passage. I did hear someone say, if you can hear the words in your head as you're reading too slow. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. I've done that before.
I'm literally so bad.
I scan it, and then in the questions, they will tell you where to go back to look more specifically. So not scan it like skim it, but read quickly. And then when the question tells you what to look for, you can go back through and find that one.
I was ready
What's
if you
the
read.
time?
Yeah, like an hour.
I thought it was like
It's like.
50 minutes.
It's the same.
I don't remember if it was like really short or if it was really long.
5 minutes early.
It's 35 minutes for 4 passages.
Because if I was like,
You end up getting about a minute per question. Maybe a little bit, no, it's a little bit.
all I
faster
know
than
is
that.
that it's
like
less
45
time.
seconds.
It's like
Yeah.
less time. Like, let's say there's like 100 questions, they will give like 80 minutes, for example. Like less time.
Yes, it's like, it's a little bit faster than a minute per question.
Mhm.
I just want to say for the reading one, I've been doing the practice test and I actually got like a much better on my pre-ACT than on my practice test. And I was going back through the answers of like, why is it wrong? Because I was going like reading the questions and going back to the passage, and a lot of the time it would say something and so it'd be like, oh, that's there, I'm gonna match that. And then I'd go back and like, why is that wrong? Read one sentence further.
Yes.
And it
all
would
of a
make
sudden you
sense.
now know that you
One
were
before
wrong.
and one.
So
yeah.
One before,
find
one
that if you,
after.
like choose to go the like question then passage route, if you think, oh, I found it, read like 1 or 2 more
Mhm.
sentences just to make sure you found it. 'Cause
Yes,
that-
They're
that
trying to
really-
trick you.
Yeah, that
They're
brought
like,
my
I'm
score
so
from like a
sneaky.
26 to a 17.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went to a ACT prep thing over the summer.
Yeah.
And one of the great tips for science is
Yes.
there are like 3 different types of questions, but on the reading ones, literally just skim as fast as possible.
Yeah.
The science
one.
The science has nothing to do with science.
Okay, the
It's just
science
matching
one,
with
I
the
did
graphs and
almost
stuff
three
like that.
The science test is a reading test. Yeah.
Yeah.
3 of the tests on the ACT are English tests, if you think about it that way. And so you don't have to know the scientific terms that they're throwing out at you. And if you try and figure them out, you're going to get so stuck. Yeah, that's
Actually,
great
both,
advice.
because the thing is, the math one is also, I feel like, just a reading test with numbers because they don't make logical sense.
That's
Yeah,
true.
like,
Actually,
That was the one section I don't
and
mention.
the rough thing is, when you go back through it, the things they're asking you are oftentimes very simple. And they just word it in the weirdest way. You have no idea what they're asking for unless you reread it like 3 times.
It's true.
Purposely making it harder to read.
And the teacher was like,
It's almost like you have to be. Failure.
I looked at it for a solid 10 minutes until I realized it was a trick question.
That's terrible. Okay, don't look at it yet. So, oh, did you get one? Did they all make it back?
We are no longer.
You got 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. You get 9 minutes on each section in the grammar section. So there's 15. This is longer. I have 2 sections in here. We're just going to do the one. So we're going to go to question 15, which means it's 36 seconds per question. But I'm going to make us sit here for the full 9 minutes because I want you to feel how much time you have. Most of you will finish with time to spare. And if you want to be on your computers or whatever while we're waiting, I don't care. But just read through the passage, pause when you get to the lined part because they're often asking you about repetition. All right, timer on. You won't cry. It's just for practice.
I'm gonna cry on the floor.
You will not. Okay, ready?
Can I come cry to you after?
Yes. Okay, go. 1 is C, 2 is J, 3 is A, 4 is E. Nope, sorry. There
was
isn't
gonna
an
say,
E.
there's
F. F. 4 is F, 5 is C, 6 is J, 7 B, 8 G, 9 A, 10 J, 11 B, 12 J, 13 C, 14 F, and 15 C. Yes, C. Okay, I want you to talk with the people around you about any of the questions that you missed. See if you can find someone that can explain to you why it is the right answer. Okay, I want to talk about number 1. So this is the difference between essential information and non-essential information. When it is about naming specifically, so in this case, we are giving the name of these two, you have to decide if it is essential to know who it is for the sentence or if it is not essential to know, right? If we just said in 1948, graduate students took on a problem, what would be the implication there? Graduate students took on a problem. It would kind of be like every graduate student in the nation band together to take on the problem of barcodes, right? And we know it's not saying that. We are saying it is saying that there are 2 specific graduate students that take on this problem. So we know then that it's not non-essential what their names are, because we have to clarify that it's not all graduate students. It's just those 2 graduate students. So that's why we get rid of the commas in that one. And I have an example to kind of show how this works. So which of these would be a little bit sad if you said this?
Oh, the bottom one,
Why?
because it's implying that you're only friends.
Exactly. If we took out Ralph and we just said, my friend came over for dinner, and everyone would say, oh yeah, we know exactly who that was because you only have one friend, you know? So this is the kind of the sadder version, because you're saying this information should be enough. You'll know exactly who I mean. Whereas in this one, my friend Ralph came over for dinner. You're saying I have many, many friends, and Ralph is just one of them, and he came over for dinner. That makes sense, the difference there? Okay. So that's why number 1 doesn't need the commas. Are there any other questions you'd like to go over now that you've talked to each other? Sadie? 4. The writer considered deleting the preceding sentence should the sentence be kept or deleted. This is one of the ones that breaks the rule of simplest being best, because it's asking you to actually keep the sentence, right, and make it a little bit longer. But the reason that we need that one is because it's going to tell us about the remaining 3 lines. And that word remaining 3 lines suggests that we have to say what came first before we can say what remains. So that's why we have to keep F as kept, because it begins the description that's completed in the sentence that follows. And it's that word remained that really clues us in on that. 8. Although successful, the contraption was both large and costly. For example, progress stalled. It doesn't quite work to be for example, right? Because the example would be showing how it is large and costly. But it is both large and costly. And we could say, so progress stalled until the 1970s. It's like it comes from that, right? So we got to go with as a result, because even so is another one that is contradicting what came before. However, and even so are both trying to contradict this idea that it was large and costly, but it is actually going to say what was a result of being large and costly, which is that it stalled. So that's why it is G. That kind of makes sense? Yeah. Okay. Any others you want to go over? Okay, I'm gonna let you take this home now, and if you want to do the second bit as a little bit more practice, you can. And then if you want to look up your answers, just Google ACT, practice ACT. It's the 2021, 2022 practice ACT. Or you can email me and I'll give you the answers. Is anyone planning on taking the second one just as practice? Then just email me and I'll give you the answers. Okay.
Can I just like cry?
Again, no, you're not allowed to cry. There's no crying in baseball. All right, now you need your Chromebooks. we're gonna do some research.
I'm going to repeat to you what I said to my grandfather after he said that to me when I was 7. This isn't baseball, this is T-ball.
Oh. You guys have seen League of Our Own, right?
I zoned out.
It's so good.
The science test isn't testing you on science, it's testing you on how you can read information.
Turns out English is the most important subject. That's what ACT says. I didn't say it. ACT said it.
It has the most questions.
What's the most important subject?
What's the most important subject? Marching band.
English is true. I love literature and English in general, but English class is always my worst.
Ah, why can't I get this to go away? Go away.
It's just,
English class,
I don't know why it doesn't always teach English classes.
it's so hard. I don't know why it's so hard. I just got all of those right. I'm still in class.
All right, you guys got your Chromebooks out, right?
That's exactly.
Okay, today, okay, I'll start when you're quiet. And including the bell. Shut up, Bell. Okay. We are going to be thinking about how to add sources to your American Dream essays. So you've done a thesis and outline now, some of you more successfully than others. So if you still don't have that perfect score, keep submitting it until it can be perfect. And then we're going to figure out how to do a little research to fill in the gaps in our outline. So I always just Google online library because it's easier, but you're looking for onlinelibrary.uen.org. This is awkward that this is right here.
I get to see your face.
No.
Nothing discourages me from doing English homework that has the site sources.
How dare they? How dare they make you cite sources? All right, so Utah's online library, you're going to go to EBSCO high schools.
How dare you make us do something where we have to cite?
I know, right? It's like, what use will this ever have? All right, you got it? You went into EBSCO? All right, we're gonna go to, let's go to Academic Search Premier. You can use any of these resources. They're all connected to this host site called EBSCO. So basically, schools and universities spend millions of dollars. We can discuss the ethics of that later, but to access this information that is peer reviewed or at least has an editor behind it so that we can tell that this has not been written with advertisers in mind necessarily, or that it's just been written by some, Joe Schmo on the internet that has some other agenda, right? This is where we can get to the academic journals that people publish to, where we can get to magazine articles that will be a little bit more credible, and newspaper sources. Yes. Oh, sorry, we can go back. We're just doing Academic Search Premier first. So it's once you get to online library, it's EBSCO high schools. The difference between these is just the access that we get. Like they block more things for the elementary schools. I know that's hard to believe that they block more, but they do.
Wow, why would they ever block anything?
Let those elementary students at it, right?
Because elementary schoolers don't need to know the full one.
Okay,
I'm being sorry.
so when you get to this search bar, you can just put something in here. Like let's say part of our outline deals with wealth inequalities. I can just put that in and I'm going to get about 600 sources. Academic Search Premier is the really scholarly one. So for the most part, you're going to get academic journals for this one. Those can be kind of difficult to read. Not more difficult than Veblen though, which is one of the reasons I had you read Veblen. So I have faith that you can get through whatever. But do you see how we're getting like all this stuff about like Middle East and North Africa, Nigeria, African region? We don't want, for my essay at least, I'm talking about the American dream and I'm not comparing it to other countries. So I want to make sure that this is more narrow. So instead of just going into the normal search bar, click on advanced search. And this is where you can add different search terms together. So let's say I want it to be in United States. As I put that in, it gives me a little bit more options so that I am not limited. And yeah, I want all of those so that any of those that come up will be a hit in the search engine. So let's see what comes up then. All right, 250, that's a little bit better. Oof, that's pretty narrow. That's interesting, but I don't know that it's interesting for my topic. Now that's interesting. College wealth divide, education and inequality in America. Maybe that will have something to do with my topic. I click on it. One thing that's really nice about EBSCO is that they give you more subject terms. So if you're not coming up with the things that you want to, you can go back and do another search with, for example, let's say wealth distribution wasn't giving me what I want. I can get in there and I can do income distribution instead. And I can find what comes up from that. So it gives you some ideas from where to go. The other nice thing is the abstract. Never read the article without reading the abstract first. It will tell you if it's a waste of time or not. Yes, oh, that's interesting. Income trends of households with a college degree and without a college degree, and it's over time since 1956. Okay, let's say I am fascinated by this source. It's all images. That will be nice. I can look at my different graphs and we can see. Let's just pull one up. It's not clearing, but. Okay, that's interesting. Let's say I'm interested in this for my paper, hypothetically. At this point, you don't want to just click that and save the link. You won't be able to find it again. When you go home, it won't be the same link. I don't know exactly the logistics behind this, but what you want to do instead, what happened? Oh, there it is. Never mind. I freaked out prematurely. What you want to do is click on, yours might just be showing, but I have to click on it. I like emailing it to myself. If you want to, you can download it if you've got space on your computer. A lot of these Chromebooks are quite small, so I don't know that I would do that. I love emailing it to myself. You can also save the source to your Google Drive, but this one works best for me. And this ensures that I'm going to easily be able to find it again. At least it should. Sorry, I got to do this off screen to see if it'll help me. It should at least. It's not working for me. It's not working to email it to you. Sorry, I'm not sure why. Go here, will it? All right, well, let's see if it'll let me do a permalink. None of it. Is any of it working for you guys? Okay, let me try it with another one to see if it's just that one or if it's EBSCO. Okay, it might just be that source. I don't know why it's not letting me do it, but when you click email, it'll do this. You put in your email address, you can send it to yourself, and it'll send it as a PDF separate attachment. So it won't take up your memory, but it'll be there in your Google, which is nice. The other nice thing is this little cite button. Okay, now, huge disclaimer here. It's not always perfect. It's not always perfect. You might need to change a couple little things. But this is a huge time saver when it comes to doing your works cited page. It gives you the MLA citation. You can copy it and paste it, and it does look like this one is correct, actually. So that's awesome. You wouldn't have to change it. You just need to make sure it was in alphabetical order. So that's another way that these can be really useful. Okay, that's Academic Search Premier. Yeah. Oh, it's just on that same side. Hang on, I'll go here. And it's just right there on the right-hand side. Right under where you say you can email it to yourself. You click Cite. And then it's got, like, if you're in psychology class, you'll use APA. And there it is. Or if you're in journalism class, you'll use Chicago. If you're in English class, you'll use MLA. Do you guys know what history uses? Does history use MLA too? Yeah, just in general, each kind of discipline chooses a different one, which is fun for you.
No, it's not.
All right. So that's Academic Search Premier. I also want to show you one that's like going to be a little bit easier for you. So that is if you want really academic sources. Academic sources go through an insane process to make sure that they are accurate. It's called a peer review process. Basically, some scholar writes their thing, writes their article. They send it to the academic journal to be published. The journal says, okay, they do a once over. They say, okay, we like the writing, we like this idea, it's new, it's interesting. They then send it to 3 people who are an expert in that field. So when I did this process, it didn't end up getting published, but I tried. I sent it to the journal. It was a pop culture journal. They sent it to 3 people who were experts on superheroes from the time period I was studying. So they found 3 experts on 1940 superheroes to send my article to. And then they send that back to me and they either say, okay, you can publish this with edits or we're not interested. They sent it back to me and said, we might be interested with edits. So then I read all of that feedback from all of these experts, and I go through and I change it and I send it to them again, and they send it back to the experts to make sure that nothing that I changed is not factual anymore, right? So it goes through this giant process, and only through that process do they then say, okay, we'll publish this. The other thing about academic journals is that there's no money incentive. The people who write for academic journals, they're professors. They're doing it to get tenure at their university. They do not get paid for those articles. So there really is very little reason for them to lie in the articles. So that can be great for when you are needing like great information to add to your outlines. This next one can be really good if you are looking for a little bit more general or a little bit more accessible sources. So go to topic search now. This is back at Utah Online Library, clicking on EBSCO and then going to topic search. And I love this one because it's got access to a bunch of newspapers and magazines. So if I do, let's do advanced search again, same thing applies. I do wealth inequality. I do United States. And I search. 10 practical steps to reverse growing inequality. This was published in the newspaper The Nation. You might want to look up, like, what kind of political bias that has, going with our conversation last time. And you can click over here on PDF full text. And I know my screen is annoying, but you get the entire article in The Nation. Elizabeth Warren, etc. And you can email it to yourself, just like before. You say, oh, this one looks like it will be great for me. You can email it to yourself, and you can also, just like before, cite it, although it's hard to see on this one. There we go. Let's check if it's right. Okay, it's not quite right. but it's a great starting point. They have things capitalized that shouldn't be. This is a great example of why you got to check your citations. They have things capitalized that shouldn't be, but it's got all the good information there. So you just need to revise it rather than starting from scratch with your citation. We're going to talk way more about citations next time. Don't worry too much about those. Okay, one more source I want us to look at. Oh, wait, no, two more. Back to Academic Search Premier. There's all of these different ones that you can look at. I find points of view to be a useful one because so many of the topics that you guys are talking about are quite controversial. So it will give you both sides of the subject. All right, there is another source I want to look at, which is Jstor.org. You can't get to that through the online library, so go to Jstor. Yes. This one might be more useful to you on another project, just as a heads up, but it's great to know we have this source. Our school has a account here. So you click login once you get to Jstor. And I will write this on the board, but our login is, sorry, it's so hard to do this on the screen, is Harriman High School. Harriman HS, no capitals. 2 R's. There we go. Harriman HS. I do know how to spell the school name. And then the password is library, no capitals. No, it doesn't get changed. Okay. And there's a login button in the top right screen. Jstor works exactly the same. I'll put up the login and everything and help you out here in a second. But Jstor works the exact same way Academic Search Premier works. You can do advanced searches. It'll even look very much the same. And it will have access to other sources. So if you aren't finding what you want through our online Utah library, Jstor is not as blocked as that one is. Don't tell the legislature, but we have more access to Jstor, and so you can get to more stuff this way. So if you're feeling limited by the others, you can use Jstor. The other nice thing is, like, this says it's from 1955, economic growth and income inequality. Look how many sources I got too. It might be that on the very last page is an amazing source, but I'm not going to see it because of this. So instead, I would like to limit my sources into a more applicable time frame. Let me see if this actually works. Published in 2011. Yeah, I'm way more interested in what income inequality looks like in 2011 than I was in 1955. So you can limit the sources that way. I bet it's fascinating, but it just didn't fit with my topic. Okay, so there's a ton of access to search databases that you have. I'm hoping that this little demonstration was mostly review for you, that this is not the first time you've seen these databases, but raise your hand if it's the first time you've seen it. It's okay if it is. Okay, cool. So it's just a way to like get around the kind of inconsistency of just doing a Google search. You can guarantee it's going to be more applicable, more credible sources. So what we are going to do is fill in your outlines a bit. It's the one I want to show you. Sorry, 1 second. Do I want to show you Cancer 3? Okay, this is not my outline. I'm just curious. Now I got sidetracked. Okay. I want the hard work outline.
You're so mean about my computer. Yeah, I do need to organize it. I do see what you're saying now. It's gonna go, okay, so we're just gonna have to start from scratch. Oh no. I don't know what that is. No, I can't make this argument. Hang on. I just wanted to get as controversial as possible. Let's do some CRT. Just kidding. All right, so that's my outline. I'm gonna do American Dream. I'm gonna do there we go. I'm gonna do systematic racism. I maybe will have a few paragraphs on that, and then I'm going to do the results equals more minorities poor. All right. I tried to do this really fast. So your outlines look way better than this, and my outline that I couldn't find, you just have to trust me, looks way better than this. You're going to start to fill in the gaps of your outline with sources that you can use. So there is an assignment that is not due next time, but the time after that we are working towards. Let me show you that. So on our Canvas, it's not due next time, it's due the time after. At least I think that's where I said it. Yeah. All right. So it's this one. American Dream Essay, Thesis, and Outline Part 2. So basically you are taking your perfect thesis and outline from last time, and you are adding in sources. And there's two places that you're going to look for sources. One is all that research that I just showed you. You're going to look for your own resource, your own resources. And you need at least 3 of those from your own research. Then you are going to look at the American Dream packets that I gave you, I don't know, a week or so ago. They're pink. And you're going to try and find 3 sources from that American Dream packet that applies to your thesis. And you're going to plug in the sources into your outline. And all you're going to do is just show me what source you're going to use where and how it will help support your topic sentence. So let's say mine is the definition of the American Dream. I'm going to look in my packet. And in my packet is a source. I don't know if this is in yours. Sorry, I'll double check. But in mine, there is a source from Thomas Jefferson to James Madison about equality. And in that source, he talks about how Europe is an aristocracy and he wants his new country to offer opportunities to the poor. Okay, so then I've got this little explanation of how I'm going to use that source. Now you'll notice in the Canvas description, I said you need 8 total sources incorporated into your outline. You are not going to use all 8 sources when you write the paper. I just want you to have options. So for this outline assignment, you're using 8. That means 3 and 3, and then 2 more from wherever, whether you want it from your research or the packet, you decide. I want you to have those 8 sources in there, but then we're going to cut back and only use the ones that work for your argument the best. Okay, that was a little long-winded. Are there any questions then so far?
Yeah, what the heck, man?
What the heck, man? Come on. I don't know how to answer that question, so we're going to move on. Yeah, sure. At this point, sure. Go ahead, Craig. Kate, let me give you a list of the sources that are in your American Dream packet. Reagan, did you have a real question? Oh, no. No, okay. All right, I'm going to give you a list of the sources so that you don't have to just read them without any. So there's some songs and stuff at the beginning. You can definitely use those for your sources. You've got Benjamin Franklin in there. And Benjamin Franklin's is all about being a self-made man. Like having a plan, having a schedule that makes you into a perfect person. Okay, so while I am typing these, take out your American Dream packets. They're pink. If you did not bring yours today, they're up there on the computer cart. If you're borrowing one, don't take it home. Yeah, they're up there on the computer cart. You can just keep it. All right. So I put up all the sources in the American Dream packet with just a little bit of information so that you don't have to read this entire packet to find information about that you could apply to your essay. Sure, I can do that. Yeah, I'll put it on the like with the sure, yeah, I'll do that right now. Yeah. So I'm going to give you the rest of the class now to work on this assignment, plugging these sources into your outline and finding sources via research if you can. I'm going to put up the logins up here on the board. If you have to do this assignment at home because you run out of time, which you probably will, you have to log in to Utah Online Library, and it's on Canvas, but just so you know, I'm going to forget the Jstor password. Login equals password is library. I want to say Utah Online Library. It is online. So original.
No hackers are able to.
Okay, I just realized. You know what? We're gonna do this next time. Sorry. Okay, so for now, you are plugging those sources into your outline. Does anyone have any questions about what that's supposed to look like? You're just putting it into the outline, yeah. I don't care.
Just a picture of a baby with a yellow.
Yeah, that goes with the source right after. Yeah. Yes.
Do we have to do this presentation?
No, I'm gonna unpublish it. We're gonna do it next time.
Me too.
That is a success. That's what I want.
The song you put in here, his other famous song.
I have the song in here. Oh, man.
The other famous one.
The other one.
Well, yeah, she knows she can hide her.
Okay, I am sorry. I am fixing Canvas with a few different things. If you were freaking out, this assignment is not due next time, it's due the time after. Whew.